Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. It's the show that's all about you guys, all about you and what you may be going through. We are not professional therapists. We are not professional counselors. We just want to help in any way we possibly can. We want to be your friend. We want to encourage you and love you and offer any kind of perspective we can just to help you guys through whatever you're going through. And yes, that is not Static up there. Static is on vacation. Vacation. So tonight we have Broman, who also goes
Hi.
by Broman, and Kyle.
Yes. Mostly Kyle.
Yeah, he goes by Broman and Kyle. Sometimes you say, "Hey, Broman and Kyle, how's it going?" And yeah, he likes it. You can tell by that look he's given on his face that, hey, I'm forcing myself to smile right now.
Hi.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. So, anyway, welcome. It's Don't Worry Wednesday. You can go to our website, don'tworrywednesday.com. If you have something you would like us to discuss, you have something you're going through, and you would like us to talk about it, you can feel free to go there, don'tworrywednesday.com, click the Submit a Topic button, and fill out the form. And we'd be happy to handle your topic. Taff, where's Static P? I think you probably know better than we do where Static P is. Well, I hope. That's awesome. Yeah, Ryan took a trip. He took a trip to where Jesse lives. If y'all remember Jesse, he's awesome, and they're down there hanging out with Tef, who came all the way to America from his home country, over across the ocean somewhere. I will let him disclose it if he wants to. Um, so, anyway, yeah. We're here and we would love to handle any topics you have coming our way. So with me, obviously I already introduced him, is Kyle, also known as Broman, and we have Princess here, running our show in the background for us. She's amazing and keeps all of our stuff organized. It's so incredible because I feel like I hardly have to do anything as far as organizing topics. I just have to click the button, and I still mess that up on occasion. But yeah. How you doing, Princess?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Thanks for answering. Um, so, all right, I am going to go through our list of names, and actually, you know what? I'm going to refresh this just to make sure. Just to make sure there isn't something new that I've forgotten to load in here. So, all right, cool. I'm going to go through our list of names. You guys look great, by the way, in the chat. Welcome, all of you. And if you hear your name, feel free to let us know you're here, and we will do your topic. So we have Nihilus, Wandering Soul, Logan, Sparrow, Meowlido, Anonymous, Shark Jelly, and Ominous Anonymous. Ooh. Awesome. So if you heard your name, let us know you're here. We would be happy to do your topic. You can just say, hey, I'm here. You can say, what's up with your mom and dad in the chat. You can say, you can give us an emoji of some kind. But yeah. How you doing today, Kyle?
You're doing fantastic.
You look fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually kids cleaned up the basement today, so that's awesome. They can walk in there again without stepping on all kinds of toys. So that's awesome. You might hear
Yeah.
them in the background a little bit today. They're just in the other room over there. So
Yeah.
pardon the noise, everyone, but they're
That's
having a good time.
that's all right. It's always fun to hear kids having fun. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Um Yeah, so we have not seen Logan here in a while. We might go ahead and do Logan's topic and just start with that one. It's from back in February. And it's called Forming Real Relationships. So yeah, we'll give that one a go. What do you say? Sound like a plan?
Yes.
Does that meet your approval, Princess?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good. All right. Then what we'll do, we'll go ahead and kick it off with that one. Hold on a second. Let me get my act together here. And then all right. All right. And then we can go. Let me get this up on the screen for you guys, and I will put it up there. And Princess, whenever you are ready, you can read it aloud.
I'm in my second semester of college, and I haven't formed a single real relationship. I reached out to so many strangers first, and I have a lot of people to nod to when we pass each other, but no actual friends. None of them message me unless I do first or invite me to things. I thought when I got over my anxiety and learned to reach out first, it would be better. But I'm exactly where I was, only with even more failures than before. I don't know what to do, and I'm losing hope. Thank you. From Logan.
Logan, my heart goes out to you, man. I definitely know how that feels. And it can be a tough situation, to feel alone, to feel lonely. And like, sometimes it just feels like nobody cares. Or maybe it feels like if you do reach out, maybe you're bothersome or a nuisance or something. But either way, it's a tough mental battle to go through. And I hear you. I've been there many, many times. So one person who's always helped me through a bunch of my psychological gobbledygook is Kyle. He's really good at it. Um, he's willing to wade through the trenches with me, which is awesome. So I'm gonna get out of his way and I'm gonna let him have a crack at it. So Kyle, take it away.
Yeah. So relationships are funny. Most of my relationships were not by my design, I guess I should say.
Mm.
I've never been good at going and finding a new friend and just, oh look, I'm gonna be your friend now. Like I haven't ever been good at that. So most of my relationships have just been sort of like a automatic, not automatically friends, but like just circumstantial, right? I might work with somebody on something or a project, and then we just get to know each other through that, or being put in the same place a lot of times. But I kind of remember that, when I was in college, the same sort of thing. I mean, I had my one friend that I went to school with, high school with. We went together to the same college, so we were roommates, and he would get invited to everything with everybody, and I didn't get invited to anything. It was really interesting.
Mm.
And uh, for me, I think the major reason for that was just I didn't. Um, I guess I didn't smile or really try to be friends with anybody. It's just kind of my fault. But um, it, it wasn't until I honestly met Joe that I started learning more about the importance of relationships
Mm.
and how to start new ones and engage people. I mean, because beforehand that wasn't happening at all. I was just bad at it. I didn't have any real good friends outside of a couple of kids in high school and my wife, who is not my wife yet at the time. So, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. But then what I ended up learning, and I learned a lot of this from Joe, is that kind of the best way to start making friends is just to smile a little bit, and say, hi, how are you? And then shut up and listen. and see and wait, and then see what they say. You know, be interested in them. And not everybody is going to want to be, not everybody clicks, right? And that's okay. Not everybody is going to be, not everybody should be your friend on that deeper level. But the people who are going to be, you'll find out as you ask them questions about them and you're genuinely interested. If you just listen to them, you'll find things that you really have in common. And that's what you're really looking for, right? That background that you can connect together so that you both can have something solid that you can build from. And that's kind of where stuff, I think, where stuff starts. But you can't force that, and especially with certain personality types, takes a long time. And it could be, sometimes too, people just don't want to bother you. So they don't worry about calling. If you present yourself as very busy all the time, then people don't want to bother you. Even if they want to hang out with you, they might be worried that they're going to take you away from something that's important. And so that can take, just making yourself available or something. I don't know. I mean, it's hard without certain more in-depth details to find out exactly what would cause this. But that was kind of my experience. I just had to learn to smile and be okay with showing more emotion than this. Always. And so that was what it took for me. I don't know where you're at, Logan, but that's where it was for me. As soon as I started smiling and appreciating people and acknowledging, before I might say, oh, that's really cool. That's interesting, or I'm into that too, but I would only say it to myself, right? I wouldn't acknowledge that or tell them. I would just say that internally, and they had no idea that I cared at all about what they were saying. And so that was just one of my sort of problems that I had to work through and sort of figure out that no, people want to know sometimes what my thoughts are, so that they know that I'm hearing them. And once I hear them, they're gonna want to hang out with me because they're gonna want me to hear them some more. That's generally how that goes. As far as finding actual friends, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on what you're interested in too. I mean, there's all kinds of different groups out there, and it can be kind of awkward to join in some of the groups. I know I always feel weird first time walking into a new group of people or a new situation. But after getting over that first hump of showing up, it's always a little better. And then the next time it's easier, the next time it's easier. And then pretty soon you're part of the group, and, so you might look into finding some groups on campus, whether it's, like an artistic kind of a group where they're just working, or maybe there's playing cards, or I know Magic the Gathering was pretty popular. Video games. There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's movie groups. There's all kinds of stuff. So whatever you're interested in, I'm sure there's something out there. Just join it, and that's going to give you a head start because you've already got something in common with these people. So I think I would start there and just insert yourself. And the nice thing is, if it's already an established group and there's plenty of people there, you don't have to worry about inconveniencing everybody, or with your presence. Right, because there's already planning on having a bunch of people around him, and if they're open groups, then I don't think you have anything to worry about. You just go and say hi and do your thing. Yeah. So I think that's about all I got for now until Joe wants to inspire me to say something else. So we'll move on.
I don't know if I will inspire anything at this point, but it looks like maybe Princess has some input she'd like to share. Princess, did you have something you wanted to talk about here?
I did, but if you want to go first, you can go first.
Oh, hey, you can absolutely go first. That would be totally great. So it'll help me think about what I got to say too.
Okay.
So awesome.
Well, I mean, this topic hits pretty close to home for me too, because I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and I was like almost never invited to anything.
Mm.
I think the only slumber party I got invited to was for a girl who was 2 to 3 grades under me.
Oh.
I don't remember why that was the case, but sweet little girl,
Hmm.
it was fun. But at the same time, it was, um, there's in some ways kind of groups that happen. And for high school, I noticed it a lot when I was in the band because I was playing in the band. On a day-to-day basis, I didn't really interact with a lot of them to any real deep extent. But eventually there was like some band meetups or, for the seniors, they had that. And I actually got to be a part of some of those things. Like I got invited to 1 or 2 of those.
Mm.
Um, and it was interesting because on one hand, it felt like I needed to be extroverted enough to join in on whatever topic they were talking about so
Hmm.
that they felt that I was engaged. Because being engaged is really important. They like engagement, even if that's just, active listening, as, Kyle has said, you know, giving your thoughts every once in a while so they know that you're also there and participating. But also, if you can find something to connect with them on that really like they get excited about, that's a great way to have someone who wants to contact you about that specific thing.
Hmm.
So if that's a group setting, then maybe you want to be like, if you were interested in going to parties, then show interest in that and find people who are interested in that sort of thing. In college, again, there's usually a lot of different clubs. There's obviously the more typical ones of like, there's the sororities, the fraternities, there's usually some sort of academically based club for quite a few of the majors.
Hmm.
There's usually some sort of anime or video game club. There's usually a book club of some variety. But at mine, there was actually a swing club as well. And many of these clubs actually want people to join and they want people to be active and participate. And so if you're not really that outgoing person, like I'm not, I've definitely been anxious, I tended to, what I would do is I would put myself in a situation where I know an extroverted, excited person is going to grab me and be like, hey, you should come do this. And then I just go like, sure, and I just get towed along. No, I'm not actively fighting being towed or anything like that. I'm open to it and I want to, but at the same time, usually my anxiety kind of can make it difficult for me to do things or for me to, so it helps to find people who are very extroverted and very excited to grab new people.
Mm.
Sometimes you can have deep relationships with them. Sometimes you won't really get a deep relationship. They get you in the group and then they're off doing their own thing,
Mm.
socialite style, you know. Um, and it's hard because forming a relationship is a two-way road, right?
Hmm.
On one hand, you have to extend an invite to be like, hey, I'd like to be your friend. I'd like to do things with you. I'd like to talk to you. And for some people, they're not very good at talking out to either you or just in general. I know for me, sometimes there are people that I actively reach out to, and I'm like, I'm that person in that friend group that's like, I'm the person who's like, hey, we should do something. Hey, how's it going? And then in other friend groups, I'm, there, and somebody else is the person who's like, hey, how's it going? Hey, we should have a study group, you
Mm.
know? Um, so, the other thing you can do is potentially if there's classes where there's study groups, I know it's really hard, especially if you don't know anyone, but whether you're good or you're bad, you can do it either way.
Mm.
Of like, hey, I'm really struggling, but I've seen that you seem to be doing pretty well. Would you be willing to help me? Like sometimes people will have busy schedules and all that, but usually I find that most people are like, sure, what are you having a problem with? And by doing that and eventually doing that and trying to engage in conversation too, if you're both just doing your work separately but together, like, you might be working on the assignment and they're doing some other assignment, you know. You can even have some casual conversation over that. And sometimes that can help build a connection. Because part of it is, of course, getting yourself out there and, inviting them. But the other part is making it a favorable situation that they're going to want to reciprocate that, because that's where the relationship comes in, is that reciprocation. Because otherwise it's kind of a one-way road either way, either they're reaching out to you and then they don't feel like there's reciprocation, so they're like, well, I guess I'll move on. Or sometimes you'll reach out and it'll feel like, well, there's no reciprocation, so I guess there's not really much of a friendship here. So, and it's tough because at the same time there's always that struggle of people being willing to open up to each other, that giving of trust. It's really tough because people don't want to trust until they've been shown that the other person trusts them. Very backwards. Very backwards. I feel like if Ryan were here, he'd get that, but especially well. But if you don't show that person that you trust them to some extent on something, then they might feel that there's a barrier there, because there's some amount of trust, because everyone's a little nervous, and when you're meeting somebody, being open usually means that they'll be like, oh, well, I want to be open too. You're sharing this. I feel like I should share it too. Now, obviously, you don't want to be pushy, and for some people, they'll overshare, or, they'll get into their life story. That usually is one way to really learn about a person, is what they say their life story is. I'm not saying that because they're lying, but I'm saying that that's, again, their perception, the way that they've grown up and they've seen the world build. So it's their life story from their perspective. But there's other ways, too, of just smaller stories or, activities. And it can even help just to put yourself out there in other activities, to have something that you're doing, because maybe they'll be excited about that. Or even if not, you can still share that as a story, and then people can connect with you and get to know who you are. Because I find that, at least for me, when I see someone light up, it's really cool, and you kind of want to know more about what they're so excited about, because you see the change from them being like this to like, oh yeah, I'm so excited, I gotta tell you about this, it was so cool, so fun, like totally, versus, oh yeah, I did this and I did that. So I mean, people like energy, just like, it helps them feel energized in that sense. I think. But anyways, I'm going to turn it back over to Joe and possibly Kyle. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Princess. That makes a lot of sense. And I could have definitely used that advice when I was in college. I was also a lot like Kyle was describing, really introverted. And, it can be a tough situation. We got some stuff in the chat here. We've got from Saule, D&D is a good way to learn social skills. I'm bad at everything other than the combat system in D&D, that is. J-Ho has, I heard MGT and video games. Try going to your local game store. They tend to hold events. Good for mingling. I also went to the public library as a youth. Saule also has swing dancing and ballroom dancing are both popular on my college campus. Just things that you might enjoy doing that, can get you around other people. You're not going to get to know anybody if you're not around anybody, right? I mean, it's just, it makes logical sense. But another thing, I mean, Kyle hit on this in the beginning, that, smiling is such a huge thing. If you can just learn to smile, it's inviting to the people around you, whether you end up talking to them or not. You are way more approachable if you can smile. Now, I'm not talking about a fake smile. I'm not talking about just turning the corners of your mouth up like that. It just kind of looks, it's not real. So you have to smile from deep down inside. You have to feel this energy in your gut. And you can practice this in the mirror, right? And what you find is, your smile, you end up smiling more with your eyes. Your eyebrows rise up, maybe your eyes open a little bit more, and your whole body, your whole face just kind of lights up. And your mouth may not be smiling at all, but the rest of you looks like you're smiling. And so that's how to be inviting, right? Now, there are some things you can do. Kyle hit on this a lot, where he's like, hey, if you just get them talking, Princess also talked about this. If you get the other person talking, there's a line you don't want to necessarily cross, because you don't want to become their therapist on day one. You don't necessarily need to know their whole life story on day one. But if you can get really good at asking questions and then listening, you listen to their responses and let their responses guide you to asking more questions. There's a book called QBQ, The Question Behind the Question, and I forget the author. But this book talks about signposts in a conversation. So you'll ask a question and you'll listen to their answer. And when you're listening to their answer, you're listening for something that you can ask another question about. And so in their response, you're like, okay, oh, now I can latch onto this and I can ask another question. And then what happens is the more they talk, the more they like you. Because it's not necessarily about you looking cool or awesome or, anything like that. Ryan has said this many times. It's not about how they feel about you that's important. What's important is how they feel about themselves when they're in your presence. So if you can help somebody feel good about themselves, if you can like them, like truly like them, find something to like about them. And everybody's got something you can like about them. Everybody's got something you're not going to like about them too. I promise. But we all have those situations as well. But, you can find stuff that you like about somebody and then use that. And the more you use those signposts in a conversation and continue asking questions, you're looking for something where you can say, oh, me too. Because sooner or later, you're going to hit on something that you share in common, and you can say, me too. And then that is a connection right there. You've just made a connection of something you like, or it could be something you dislike. But a point of agreement with that person, and then that's another connection. And what happens is you can build a pretty good friendship in a relatively short period of time based on those questions and based on that conversation. And you didn't have to come up with anything except asking them questions about them. And it's a wonderful thing. Now, I love what Princess was talking about. Study groups. I mean, you're in college. There's different things you can do. I know if you join a study group, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone here. You're making friendships and you're improving yourself in your classes. So you're doing your college job, which is to do good at school, to do good in your classes, and you're also making connections with those people that are working with you, and they're going to learn from you. You're going to learn from them, and it really turns into a really cool thing. And you can build some really tight friendships in study groups. Also in entertainment groups, Kyle talked about movie groups or different extracurricular things. I mean, those are all great, all of them. And they're all just places where you can meet people. Now, I know I'm an introvert. I don't like meeting people. I recharge my batteries when I'm by myself. But here's the thing. Even being an introvert, I still crave connections with other people. We all do. We all don't like the feeling of loneliness. We might like being alone. We might prefer that a lot of times, to be alone. But that's different than being lonely. Being lonely is painful. It's sad. It's hard. And what happens is the more lonely we feel, it becomes a downward spiral, because then we're less energized to go out and meet people, which then makes us feel more lonely, which then makes us feel less like going out. And it can just be this downward spiral, and you just feel lonely all the time. And it can lead to depression. It can lead to self-loathing. There's all kinds of things that you can spiral down into. And I've been in those places. But I tell you, those are some great things that you can do. And anonymous, or no, wait, it's not anonymous. This is Logan. Logan, you can do it. You can. I promise you. It might feel uncomfortable. Kyle was talking about that too. Is at first it'll feel uncomfortable. When you first go someplace where you don't know anybody, or you go to this event where, even if you're interested in the stuff that's going on, it can still feel uncomfortable because it's you and then a bunch of people that you've never met before. But I bet you, if you look around that room, if you watch the people and just pay attention, you're going to find somebody else who's a lot like you, who's looking for somebody to talk to, but they're too nervous, or they're too, they're introverted. They're afraid to make that first move.
Mhm.
And if you,
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
one thing I'd like to add, don't be afraid to try something new as well in order to, like, if they're doing something and you've never tried it before, don't be afraid to try something new. I mean, caveat that, it is, like, safe and legal for obvious reasons, but trying something new, like a new game or a new club thing, like dancing, if you've never done that before, like, give it a try. Give it an honest shot. That's all.
Right on. But yeah, that was actually perfect timing because I was kind of running out of stuff to say there. Kyle, did you have anything to add on here?
Yeah, I would just say two things, maybe three. They're quick though. When we're talking about this social anxiety thing, I think if you really could see into other people's hearts, a lot of times you'll find that they're probably in the same position as you are. They're just not saying anything either. I mean, most people probably aren't going out and inviting 50 people to something and then skipping over you, right? They might invite their one good friend or their two good friends that they have. And other than that, they're just waiting to be invited to something too. So, I mean, it might be something where you start inviting people to something that you're doing, and that might get you more stuff going on with them. So that's something too. The other thing is, well, I'll back on that because people fear rejection, right? Nobody wants to be told no, or I don't want to do that. That sounds stupid. But the reality is, that's a two-way street. So it could be they're not sure that you would be interested. So just put yourself out there and see if ask to tag along on some stuff. You'll be able to tell probably if they don't really want you to come along because they'll be very hesitant. But if they're like, yeah, come on, then it's all good. So the other thing I would say is don't be too hard on yourself. I'll say this time period we've gone through the last couple of years in the world has been a lot different than before. And a lot of people have lost or not developed the social skills that they normally had. I know that I've gone backwards a lot in some of my social skills just because of isolation during pandemic. And so don't be too hard on yourself for not having, I mean, people are still not sure how to navigate. Is it okay to hang out with certain people? Should I be staying alone most of the time? Like, I don't know how to, it's something we're all learning still. So coming out of sort of pandemic situation, and some people are still really in isolation. So you don't really know what's going on. And so don't beat yourself up too much. And yeah. And then the last thing, no, I think that's it.
How many things was that? I wasn't counting.
That was two. That was two.
Things?
I mean, there was a third thing, but it's kind of the same as what before. A lot of people are just worried about saying the wrong thing because there's a lot of. It's really easy to accidentally offend a lot of people. It seems like nowadays.
That is for sure. Oh, wow.
So, but I think you just have to not worry about it. If you're not trying to be offensive and somebody thinks you're being offensive, then it's really should be really easy to back up and say, well, I'm so sorry. I did not mean it like that. That is not what I intended, and then you should be fine. So don't worry too much about it. People can see normally if you're trying to be malicious or not. So don't worry too much about that either. So
Yeah. And honestly, you know what? One of the ways I figured out where those boundaries were about offending people was I would come up to that line and then like usually cross it and offend
yeah,
somebody, and then I would have to be, and then I would learn, right? I would be like, okay, that was too far. I'm not going to do that again, and it's all a learning experience. But Logan, I'll tell you what, you're already, if you can take it in a step-by-step process. If I had to start at square one, I had to start at the very beginning of all of this and just start with saying, okay, I'm going to make eye contact with 10 people today. And I would put like 10 coins in my pocket, right? And so then anytime I made eye contact with somebody, I would take a coin and I would take it out of my pocket and I would switch and put it in my other pocket on the other side, right? And so I would do this and make eye contact. Okay, I only did it with 7 people today. I was too scared to go all the way to 10. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do 10. And I would try again, right? And then so maybe you go from eye contact to doing the head nod, the manly head nod. And maybe you grunt, And then maybe next you throw in a smile. I'm going to smile at 10 people today. And that gets weird. Because try it. I dare anybody here in the chat, try it. Just go smile at people and watch the responses. You will be entertained, I promise. Because a lot of times people can't help but smile back at you. And sometimes they'll catch themselves and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not trying to smile here." Like, so because they're trying to be upset or something. And like if you come out and smile and then their automatic response is to smile back, then now you've kind of frustrated them because they weren't wanting to smile back at you. But so then from smiling, maybe you go from saying hi. And then from there, you can continue to progress. And I had to start, like I said, at the very, very beginning. I was working and I had to learn how to get good with people. I learned people skills. I read people skills books, how to win friends and influence people, how to have confidence and power in dealing with people. There's tons of books out there that you can get about how to meet people, how to get along with people. And, a lot of it is just relax, ask questions, smile, be friendly. Because, like Princess was talking about with the trust thing, we want, in order to trust somebody, we want them to trust us first, right? And it's kind of the same way with friendliness. We would love to have friends. Lots of people would love to have more friends. Most people, I think, in the world would love to have more friends. But they're waiting for somebody to be friendly to them first. And so your job then becomes, okay, I'm going to be the friendly person first. I'm going to make first contact. I'm going to be friendly so then they can be friendly towards me. And maybe that's another thing you set where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this with 10 people today. I'm going to be friendly. I'm going to treat people nicely and be friendly to 10 people. And you're not always going to get people to be friendly back at you. There will be people that are having a really rough day and they're not going to treat you nice in return. And that's okay. It's not about you. It's about what's going on in their life. It's not the fact that you came up and offended them by being friendly. But I tell you what, I would imagine more than half of the people that you run into and are friendly with will be friendly with you in return. And it's really, really interesting, and it's amazing. The more you do this, the better you get at it, the more it just starts to be natural. You start to come up with little lines that you say to break the ice, like my classic line that I use at gas stations and everything is, "Hey, you having fun in here today?" I always ask that, when I go in to pay for gas or, get a soda or something, I'll just go up to the counter and I'll ask the person, "Hey, you having fun in here today?" And I'll know without them even saying a word. They'll just look at me and I'll know if they're having fun or not. Many times they'll look at me, "Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be having fun in about an hour when I get out of here," or whatever. It gets fun. But anyway, Logan, you can do this. You can make this happen. And I'll tell you, it'll be very, very rewarding the more and more you do it, because you will, before too long, you'll have a friend, you'll have a close friend. And then maybe you'll have a bunch of close friends. And then maybe that group, you guys will do stuff together. Who knows? But it'll be really cool. So, anyway, Logan, thank you so much for the topic. I hope that's helpful for you. I hope that you get to see this. This topic will be going out at some point as an individual topic on our channel and on our website. And yeah, hopefully you will catch it and it'll be helpful for you. So thank you very much for the topic, and we appreciate you and love you a lot. So thank you. But anyway, we can move on. What do you think, Kyle?
Sounds good.
All right. Looks like we have Meowlido here. Meow has a handful of topics in our queue here. And looks like what we will do is one titled "Being Okay with No Logical Reasoning." I like the title. Sounds way, way cool. But I'm going to get this up here for you guys. And yeah, we can get right into this one. So this is from Meow, and it's called "Being Okay with No Logical Reasoning." And I'll get it up on the screen here for you. Boom. And Princess, take it away.
I often feel like things need to have a reason. I often try to find a reason behind thoughts, emotions, and actions. When I'm doing human interactions, I question myself so much. Social interactions are things that I don't often have a logical reason behind them, which makes the questioning of them not really do anything good. Often, one of the primary reasons I question my social interactions is because I'm afraid of people asking me why I do things or something like that. How do I learn to be okay with doing things with no reason behind them and learn to get past the anxious worries, primarily worries of doing something wrong, that hold me back? Thanks, Meow.
Thank you, Meow. Thank you for this topic. This is great because logic. Sometimes we do things that have no reason whatsoever. The person above me, Kyle, he's like the king of logic. I'll tell you what, he's so good. Like I can come to him with some like crazy mess of a situation, and he will just cut right through it with logic and be like, "Oh yeah, this is why this is happening. Boom, 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 boom. Did you think of this?" And I'm like, "No, I never thought of that because I'm being overly emotional here." Like, and he'll be like, "Well, stop it. Be more logical." Actually, I don't think you've ever said that to me, but that's kind of what I hear when in my head. But yeah. So you feel like things need to have a reason. And you know what? Maybe there is a reason, but it may not necessarily be a productive reason. Maybe there's a reason just for relaxation or for entertainment or for whatever, right? But I'm going to get out of Kyle's way and I'm going to let him talk because when it comes to logic, like I said, he's the man. So Kyle, take it away.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody's
thing I
taking
wanna-
it away.
Yes. First thing I want to say before I get to the topic is you wrote in here that you finished your research that you were doing. And I just want to say I'm impressed because normally when I'm almost done with some kind of research, I'm halfway into some other research and it just doesn't ever end. Like it's just this deep hole. So good job. You finished. um, but yeah, reasons for doing. This is interesting. I'm wondering. I'm having an interesting sort of issue accepting the premise of the topic. So I'm just gonna say what my issue is, and then maybe I'll work through it as I'm talking about it. Sometimes that just helps me, but I don't know that anything ever happens without a reason. If that makes sense. So I don't know that I always recognize what the reason is, but there always seems to be a reason. Like causality is pretty big to me. So I think that everything has a cause. And so this idea of things happening without reason or without a cause is really interesting. It's going to take me a while to wrap my head around that. But as far as doing things which seem maybe like done at random, like or spontaneity, maybe like maybe we're doing something without really thinking about it first. I wouldn't say that's reasonless. I think then what we're seeing is something that is more that we've been conditioned to respond with some sort of base response, and those don't have reason as far as I didn't think we don't think about what we're going to do. But they still have causes. So, okay, you said maybe it's less things happening without a reason and more happening with a choice reasoning. Or maybe it's more question what the reason is and not if there is one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. Okay. Well, people are silly.
Beautiful words. Just need to come.
I think that's kind of where I'd like to go. I mean, people are silly. I mean, we don't do things all the time because it's a good idea.
Everything I've always done has always been
honestly,
a good idea, man.
Like, rarely do people do something because it's a good idea, right? Most of the time we do something because it just felt right or sounded good at the time. Or it sounded wrong, but we did it anyway.
Yeah, man. I did a lot of things because they were wrong. Because they were wrong. Because I was in my rebellious streak, you know?
Yeah, just in spite of it, you know? And, because we're angry or it sounded funny, you know? It might have been wrong, but it was funny. Or we were mad, so it's like, I don't care, I'm doing it. But I think in day-to-day life, normal social interactions is most of what we're trying to do is have fun, I think. I hope anyways, right? Have a good time, get along with people. And so, when we're just hanging out, I mean, yeah, we're gonna do weird stuff because it's kind of part of that group sort of thing. It just naturally, I think we conform to groups that we're around. And if we didn't do that, we just, it's like that wouldn't be one of our friend groups. If so if they're doing something that's totally contrary to you, then you probably wouldn't be hanging out with them, I guess. But let's see if we got, for example, with social interactions, I want to talk to someone or make friends, and I'll ask myself why, and I won't really be able to think of a reason that really supports it or backs it up. My thinking is always changing and evolving, so I do think I've learned some on this topic. I don't. Okay, here's an interesting perspective. I don't think we have to know why. Sometimes it's just good to be social, and we learn why later. Maybe you'll really help somebody who's been having a bad day, or maybe it'll just, I don't know, like the universe works in mysterious ways sometimes. I mean, maybe that just is going to keep you there or keep somebody else there a little longer and avoid some kind of accident. I mean, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of reasons we can't know. And so sometimes I feel like I've been sort of pushed to do something that's not normal to me. That I wouldn't, that's like totally outside of my normal comfort zone, but I'll do it sort of and feel like I've got this push, so I'll do it. And then come to find out later that it was really sort of like the Holy Spirit sort of guiding me and pushing me in that direction. Because that had a profound effect on some other person. So being open to that sort of possibility that we don't have to know. It's not really our job to know why everything is presented, why we have all the options we do. But sometimes it has nothing to do with it at all, and we're just having a good time. When we want to just have and as far as why to make friends, I mean, because it's just good to be a friend. We are designed to be social creatures. And if you eliminate that, if you just say no social because I don't understand the point, then you're denying yourself sort of part of who you're meant to be. And so just saying yes for that reason. I mean, that might be why. I mean, you've got this sort of draw to do that, and that's normal. I think that's just part of being in the mix. So, but as far as the logic of it goes, I mean, honestly, like it's a lot of it's biology. We just have, that's just part of who we are. We've got hormones making us do things, making us say things, feel things, act this way or that way. And other people's hormones make us act different too, and a lot of human interaction happens on that sort of chemical level between two people that we don't see or think about or have any good reason for it. It's just because whether we want to it or not, we're affected by and affect other people with our hormones and theirs. So having an understanding of that, is kind of good, because you could say like, okay, so this doesn't seem logical, but we're doing this. Then you can ask yourself, well, maybe this isn't, it's either a good thing or a neutral thing or a bad thing, and you can think through that. And if it's bad, stop. And if it's neutral or good, then hey, why not? Not a big deal. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. So, and then when you get home, lay down, then think about it some more. It might probably make more sense to you next week. So, or but it doesn't have to make sense. That's the other thing. I mean, there's just so much about life that we don't understand, and we never will. And the stress about that is not logical, because we're just not smart enough. No one in the world is smart enough. So we're just not. I mean, there's just too many possibilities. Like, there's too many infinite universe possibilities. So we're not smart enough. So yeah, think about it a little bit. If you can't figure it out, if you're meant to know, you'll know, and if you're not meant to know, you won't. So if it's eating at you, then you're probably meant to know, and gotta meditate or wait for an answer. But if it's not really that big of a deal, then and we're gonna move on from me to somebody who has something else to say.
What? We're gonna... That was an interesting segue. Hey, Ash, welcome back. Yeah, Meow. This is a great topic, and I'll tell you what, I could go through all kinds of crazy about, questioning the purpose of anything. There have been some deep soul searching moments, that I've gone through recently. And who knows? I'm not sure exactly what's going to come out here. So I'm just going to open my mouth and say some stuff. And if it's good, great. If it's not, then just delete it from your memory and go back to what Kyle said, because that's good. But so I like what you said in the chat, Meow. You were talking about, for example, with social interactions. I know, Kyle, you already touched on this. You said, I want to talk to someone or make friends, and I'll ask myself why, and I won't really be able to think of a reason that really supports it or backs it up. My thinking is always changing and evolving, and so you think you've learned some on this topic. One more thing, though. I feel like this topic probably sprouted from my trait of questioning everything, and that's not a bad trait to have. It's okay to question stuff. It's okay to ask questions. The answer to why social interactions is because we're social beings. We cannot get around that. We can't get around it. If you just totally close in on yourself and don't have any social interactions, like we talked about on the previous topic, you will feel lonely and it will be difficult. And the thing is you never know. You never know the ripple effect of where some interaction that you have with somebody, where that could lead to. You never know. I met Kyle through his former band director and got to know Kyle, and through Kyle, and that was the first time I met Kyle. He didn't have much to say. And that's totally okay, But over time, we got to be really, really close friends. And from meeting Kyle, I met his brother Ryan, and got to know him as a musician. We got to work on projects together. We got to be good friends. All this stuff, and it's crazy. And we put together a company together. All kinds of stuff. Through knowing Ryan, I got to know Princess. And she's amazing. She's such an amazing friend. And I'll tell you, I would never have known any of these people if I hadn't met Kyle's band director. Right? So you never know where a social interaction is going to lead to. And you might meet somebody, and then they might know somebody, and you meet them and you get to be friends. Maybe like 3 or 4 friends down the line is going to be somebody that you actually build a really close bond with. And I didn't meet, Kyle's band director by chance either. There was a friend of his that I knew, that I met through him. And that person I met because I worked in the same store as he did, so we met through work, and then his friend was Kyle's band director, and then I met Kyle, and then I met Ryan, and then I met Princess, and all of you guys that I've met have come because I know Ryan, right? And it's pretty amazing. You never know where it's going to lead. And really, I heard a quote one time. A guy talked about the best way to be happy, because really, being happy is better than being unhappy, right? Like, if you're going to be stuck in this existence anyway, like, why not be happy? Right? That's the thing, like, none of us asked to exist. We just do. That's the way it is, I that's another thing I'm questioning. Like, why? What? I exist. Why? I didn't ask for this. Like, none of us asked for it. So, but we're here. And so, if we are going to be here It'd be great to be happy. And the best way to be happy is to give happy to other people. So if you can enrich the life of another person through social interaction, that in turn automatically enriches your life, in many ways more so than the amount that you've enriched their life. When we give into other people's lives, the feeling that we get as a result is above and beyond the level of happiness that we could get from another person, because we've served into the life of another person. And I'll tell you what, Meow, so if you want logical reasoning behind social interactions, that's probably going to be one of the biggest ones, is that you will be happier as a result of helping other people be happier. And it can take some practice. I know it took me a lot of practice to learn how to enrich the lives of others. I was good at, getting enrichment from others, I guess. But it's way better when you can do that. So I think Princess has some stuff to say on this. I'm going to go ahead and turn it. Princess, did you still have something you wanted to talk about?
I do.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you then.
Some of it comes from another thing that you said in the middle of, or if I'm playing a video game, I might ask why, and I'll try to find a good reason. This sort of ties into the question of purpose. There's a reason like purpose, and there's a reason like logic. Could be both. Part of what I think is interesting about that statement is you're trying to find a good reason. And that makes me worried that in some ways you're judging your reasoning before thinking it thoroughly out. And what I mean by that is that, you're saying like, well, if I'm playing a video game, I'm trying to find a good reason. What's a good reason to be playing this video game? It's fun. That becomes a question. Are you playing it because it's fun and you have nothing else to do? Usually that's like, oh yeah. Or are you playing it because it's fun, but it's also dinner time, in which case maybe that's not quite a good of a reason to miss dinner for playing a video game. But part of it is that to me, it sounds like you are placing expectations that you expect others to have on you. And I say that because I've done that before. Especially, there's certain things that I expect others will expect of me. Like at work, I have some wild imagination, which is based partly out of worries that they are expecting me to be there, snappy, and that things are good, and that I am totally fine being completely without any of their help, which is not true at all. But I'm expecting them to have that expectation. I'm expecting someone else to have that expectation that I have a good reason for playing a video game. When it doesn't have to be that. I can just play a video game and have a good reason that it's fun or that I want to. It doesn't have to be a deep line of reasoning. Now, there can be deep lines of reasoning, for certain things like my, whole having an expectation that others have an expectation of me spawns largely from other experiences I've had in my childhood, which I can trace back to certain experiences, or I can even draw that connection to another tree line because I know myself very well. And I ask myself questions, but what I do is I usually try to ask productive questions. So what's the reason behind me asking the question? Like, if it's just like to get an answer, then I can give an answer. But if part of it is trying to understand myself better, then asking, well, what's a good reason isn't very helpful. What might be a better question is, what do I like about this video game? Or, sometimes I'm deciding whether I want to watch like an anime or a movie. It's like, what do I like about this movie? And if I'm just weeping for the past like an hour and I'm just seeing that the plot is going to continue to make me cry, then it might be a good time to be like, should I really be watching this? Is this really good for me? The answer is no. But
sometimes you need a good cry, though. Sometimes that's important.
Sometimes you need a good cry. But if you're crying for no apparent reason and you don't get it and you don't want to be doing that, like that's not like where you're being tugged there because of emotions, but on that other hand, like the reasoning behind it is just it's something to watch and it's late at night and I don't have anything better to do, but I don't want to go to bed. I have decided that that's usually not a good reason to continue watching an anime that's just going to make you cry with no uplifting qualities, which has been an experience of mine in the past when I was younger. But anyway, that's kind of the two things that I'm just noticing, and some of this is just from my experiences. But sometimes it's kind of a question of, well, it's good to question things, right, to understand them better. But what is the intent behind that questioning? Is it to make you indecisive? Is it meant to, rip at that fabric of like, oh, well, maybe then I shouldn't be doing this if I don't have a reason to be doing it? Or is it, oh, well, I just want to understand myself better so that when I'm doing something, I can, either know that I'm still following goodness or, oh, well, maybe I'm doing this for a reason of I'm just scared. I'm doing this thing that I'm not really sure about. It's fine, but it's also I could just be better if I just was open about it, that I'm scared, rather than hiding that and trying to put up a front or other things like that. So, I guess that's my two things. I'm gonna wrap it back up with, if you're doing this, I know it's easier said than done, but when you notice it, you really gotta try and stop. When you find that you are expecting an expectation that others will have of you, it's not good.
Mm.
To expect that somebody else will have an expectation. Now, there are times where others have expectations, but make sure that it's what they're actually telling you their expectations are. And you're not making an expectation up in your mind that you think they have. Because predicting them tends not to go very well. Now, sometimes it sometimes works out if you're doing it for tests. It's the only time I've ever had that work, kind of. But even then, it's better just to ask the teacher what their expectations are. Goes a lot more smoothly. Then you don't have to guesswork it. But the other thing is ask productive questions. If you're getting stuck on, well, why should I talk to this person? Why should I try to be their friend? Well, think about instead, well, what do I like about this person? What do I know about this person? And follow those trains of thought into being like, oh, well, maybe the reason I want to talk to this person is I think they're really cool because I saw them do some cool Minecraft video and I was like, this would be a really cool person to talk to. I don't know. They seem cool from what I've seen. Or maybe you've been like, well, they really stood up to somebody in the classroom and, protected someone. Man, I thought that was just really cool. And I really would like to get to know them. So don't, at least if you're going to keep asking questions, try asking different questions too. If you're going to have questions, keep lining them up rather than stopping at one question repeatedly, wondering, if you get stuck in that loop, ask a new question. Write it down, make a little detective journalist notebook if you're really good at that sort of thing. Make mental notes if you're really good at that sort of thing. But if you find that you're going to ask questions, my recommendation is keep asking questions, but ask new questions. Try taking it from a different perspective, from a different, vantage point of like, what else do I know? To detective up a case for what you know behind the reason. And you won't know it all. There are many times where I've had to sit hours and hours and hours and days, where over time I eventually figure out new pieces of things because I've pulled together this portfolio of, oh, well, maybe it's this, but I'm not sure that totally fits the case, or, oh, maybe it's this. And then, oh, I totally forgot. There was this one time where this happened. That fits a lot better. But there's still something not quite totally there about the whole picture. And even having partial reasons can help. You're like, oh, well, I did this because someone in the past did this to me. So I just naturally have that reaction now to do this. And then knowing that, you can do something to change that, right? Because knowing is half the battle, and then the other half is actually making a change. But I think I've kind of got a loop at this point. I don't know. I'm going to turn it back to them. But that would be my perspective on this topic, is more that sort of thing. There's I believe personally that there's a reason behind everything. you can trace it if you trace it back far enough. That every person has a motivation, has a reason, and it's there. You might not know what it is. You might not know where, and you might not be that person to know what it is. But I think that even things that are like, well, I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a reason behind that. Even if they're like, well, I just did it for fun. That still tells you that that for some reason their mind was thinking of that as fun. It was associated with fun.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they associate that with fun? And then you can think of a billion possibilities. But anyways, I'll stop rambling.
Oh, I love your rambling, Princess. You're amazing. But I think you're right, and that ties in with what Kyle was saying. There's a reason that something happened. That like there's a cause for it, right? There's now as far as some deep reason, like in the fabric of the universe, maybe there's not this big groundbreaking reason for something happening, but there was a cause, right? Like Kyle was saying in his, when he was talking. But Kyle, did you have anything more to talk about this subject?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to piggyback off what you were saying with when we met, because it kind of has a little bit to do with our previous topic too. So I thought I'd just add on to that because it's just the only reason that we met, right, is because my band director was that you guys are putting together a party of sorts, and he was sort of nervous about inviting people. So you told him, right, invite the one guy who's just going to say no and he's not going to show up. That way you can get that feeling out of the way. And I didn't say no, so it was just kind of interesting. One of those things that is, life. Some things in life happen, you don't know why, because I'm sure that wasn't a normal question to ask somebody, but you did, and then it wouldn't be normal for him to go ahead and do it anyway, but he did. And it wasn't normal for me to say yes, and I did, and so it's just one of those things, these reasons don't always make sense, but here we are this many years down the road, and it's obvious, right? We're such good friends now. It just doesn't make sense that this shouldn't have happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you mentioned that and here that you're really trying to find out the best way to live life, and I never stop trying to figure that out. I think that's a great question to ask yourself every day. What can I do today to be better?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do today that's going to make me move in the direction that I need to move and do the things I need to do? I think that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with those questions. You could start every day with that question. Wake up in the morning, boom, what do I need to do today to move forward with my goals, whatever. So the only thing you need to figure out isn't so much the logic of what to do, it's why. It's where you want to be and why you want to be there. And then the question of how or what or why you're doing the things that you are doing answer themselves. It's because you're trying to get here, and subconscious, if you focus on that, you're going to move in that direction whether you want to or not. Even if it's so weird. I've had things that I've wanted to accomplish and I don't even realize it, but they're getting sort of done in a roundabout sort of a way, and it didn't make sense to me at first that these things had anything to do with that at all, but then they did. Just wrapped itself up with a neat little bow, and that thing got done. So, yeah. So that if that's the question you're asking is how to live your best life, keep doing that, and then when you're not gonna always know the answer. Sometimes it takes years to find out what that best life looks like and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. But I think if you're trying to do your best, then you're going to be always moving in the right direction, even if you don't know what the end is. So.
Absolutely. It's definitely good to ask those questions. How can I make my life better? Kat has some interesting stuff in the chat. That Kat is saying that slowly come to realize that not everything that happens has a reason, let alone things that I do. And it's interesting because I think you're right, Kat, that sometimes the only reason something happened was because I felt like it. Or sometimes I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or, sometimes, Who knows? And maybe it'll go no further than that. Maybe that an incident happens and nothing else. It was just kind of a neutral, benign thing that happened. It's not going to cause a big shift in anything, but you know, even though there isn't some kind of big reason for stuff to happen, there's generally a cause, right? Like Kyle was talking about early on, there's a cause for stuff to happen. And then who knows, down the road, you might actually discover the reason why these things happened. Kyle was talking about how we met. I'm so glad we met. I'm so glad that sequence of events that seemed so weird at the time that brought Kyle and I into the same room where we had an initial conversation that wasn't very groundbreaking. But it didn't matter because that sequence of events, turned into something that is huge now. I mean, now we're really good friends and I was just over at Kyle's house on Sunday. It was great with his huge, mess of kids. We had a great time. They were all hanging all over me and stuff, which is great fun. But you don't know. You might not know the reason for something happening. Sometimes something happens just to teach us a lesson. Sometimes and that's one thing that most things that happen you can learn from. Even the way you walk. I mean, the way I walk, it's kind of goofy, but whatever. Maybe I can fix the way that I walk. Maybe I could learn a better way to walk. Maybe I could learn a better way to go upstairs. Maybe I could learn, who knows? But if we can come up with ways to constantly be on the lookout for improvement, that's great. And Meow, I think you are doing that through all of this massive questioning of everything that's happening, of all the things that are going on in your life. You tend to question everything. And that's great because what that's going to lead to is a better and better life. And you'll understand more. So anyway, Meow, I thank you so much for this topic. And I love your topics. They're getting deep, which is cool. And I love that you're questioning these things. So keep it up. And we'd be happy to continue to answer more and more of your topics. So Meow, thank you so much for that topic. You're amazing. And yeah, we can move on. So yeah, what do you think? We ought to do another topic. What do you think? Be a good idea?
Yeah, probably.
Probably good, I think so. Yeah, so let's go. You know what? I'm going to go back through the list real quick and just see if anybody showed up. We have Nihilus, Wandering Soul, Sparrow, Anonymous, Shark Jelly, and Ominous Anonymous. Oh, thanks, Meow. You're amazing. So yeah, so if there isn't anybody else here, then we can do one of these anonymouses. Anonymize? Anonymi? What do you think, Kyle?
Sure.
You're smart. Is it anonymouses?
Oh, multiple
anonymous. Is it anonymi?
anonymous.
Or anonymouses?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're a
Yeah,
math
we'll
guy,
not
a language.
We'll call them anonyms.
Anonyms. Perfect. Anonymouses. Thanks, Jesse. It's good to see you, man. Anonymouse. All right. So let's see. Princess, I'm gonna ask your glorious opinion. Do you think we ought to do the anonymous or the ominous anonymous?
Either is fine. One is short, one is long.
All right. Kyle, what do
One
you
of
think?
them is,
Let
well,
me
I
let
guess
me
they're
look
both
over
about your
this here.
thoughts.
You wanna do the long one or the short one?
I think, well,
I'll give a short summary. One of them is, as it says, basically your opinion on the LGBTQ community. The other one is someone's story about fighting temptations and strong things in hopes of others being able to gain something from their story, as well as any thoughts you guys have.
Hmm.
So they're two very different types of topics.
very, very different.
Hmm.
So the long one is like legitimately a long story.
Yes.
Yep. And that's the mental warfare one.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? In light of you being here on the show, I would lean in that direction. Because
Yeah, I think I like that one. I think the other one, you and I are going to have extremely similar answers.
Mhm.
So if I'm here or not, they'll get to hear the answer to that one. That I would.
All right, perfect. Well, we will do this one from the
Of course,
ominous.
this means they won't get to hear Ryan's answer to this one, so that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, but I think Ryan and you will have about the same answer on that one.
Okay.
So we'll do the
Nice.
ominous.
Maybe you'll have good insight,
Yeah. We'll do the ominous anonymous. This is called Veteran of Mental Warfare. And yes, like Princess said, it is a fairly long topic to read. So we'll get it up here as quickly as possible.
And you'll probably have to end up scrolling it.
Yep.
But that's okay.
Yep, that is for sure, but that's okay. So all right, I'm gonna get it up on the screen, and Princess, have at it.
You're seeing now a veteran of a thousand of psychic war. I was living on the edge so long, where the winds of limbo roar, and I'm young enough to look at, and far too old to see. All the scars are on the inside. I'm not sure if there's anything left of me. Don't let these voices speak. It's time we have a break from it. It's time he had some leave. We've been living in the flames. We've been eating at our brains. Oh, please don't let these urges go. My energy is spent at last. My armor is destroyed. I've used up all my weapons, and I'm hopeless and bereaved. Wounds are all I'm made of. Did I hear you say that this is victory? Back as long as I can remember, till when I was around 16 or 17 years on in high school, I've had these voices in my head. Fortunately, I don't hear them anymore because they were horrible. But it was one of those situations that I've never talked about. I never knew if it was just me or if anyone else had a similar issue. I only ever talked about it after it went away with one person back then. And then I mentioned it again when I went to counseling many years later at college. I just wanted to know what it was. I figured I can't self diagnose myself. If I were to do so, the only thing I could think of for it would be schizophrenia. But I don't want it to be that. And I'm not special enough to have that kind of a rare mental illness, right? It was not schizophrenia. This topic is not so much for me. I've moved on. But being what it was for me, I figured it may be good to share this and let it be discussed. And Don't Worry Wednesday, in case anyone is going through something like this, what I went through, and hears it and is helped by it. So here goes. I had two strong and evil things going on in my head. First were the urges to do things, not a good things. The urges were things like punching people in the face or scratching nice cars and destroying cool things that I liked or other people liked. It took a ton of effort to overcome these urges. I don't actually remember succumbing to them ever in middle school or high school, but as I got older, the stronger the urges got, and the stronger my self control had to be. The second thing were the two voices. First was the voice of a crowd, chanting, hard to understand, loud, cheering. It was driving me mad. It drove me into myself, and I just wanted the quiet. I hated the crowd, but not as much as the boy. The voice of a boy, always the same age as me, yelling at me, berating me, telling me to do horrible things. The boy would call me a coward and other foul names. I still never use that kind of language because they meant bad language. And I always avoid it myself anyway. But this voice would use it regularly. And it would direct it at me or at the people around me. And then the boy and the crowd would sometimes fight. Sometimes they would agree. But the boy was always telling me to do bad or outright evil things. The crowd was sometimes good, but not always. The voices got louder if I was in a place that was loud or bright. As a result, to this day, I prefer dark and quiet places. It was horrible to go through, but at the same time, I grew a lot. I gained levels of self control that would have taken so much longer to develop. I still get urges to do things that may be less than good, but those urges don't come every day, multiple times a day like they used to, and they're not nearly as strong. The voices are gone entirely. I hope that no one else ever has to go through what I went through back then. But if anyone is going through this, I just want you to know there is an end, even if you can't see it yet. When I talked to my counselor years later, I found out that this was what's called invasive thoughts. If you have this kind of thing, it can be tough. I never had anything like Don't Worry Wednesday back then. But maybe this topic on Don't Worry Wednesday could help. Also, I'm sorry for butchering such a good song at the beginning. From
It's a tongue
Anonymous
twister.
Anonymous.
Yes.
It is. You're not prepared for it. And not looking at its text right in front of you where it's easy to actually see it.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Princess, and thank you, Ominous, for this topic. Man, there is a whole lot of things we can say about this. I mean, I definitely understand invasive thoughts. I mean, I go through seasons, it seems like, where invasive thoughts tend to happen. And you're right, Ominous, that there is an end. But sometimes they find their way and creep back in, depending on your circumstances, depending on what's going on. You know, a lot of times if you're under a lot of stress, sometimes these things can happen. If you're having, some kind of a major groundbreaking thing happen in your life, something that's really important that's about to happen, then invasive thoughts, you might be more likely to come back at that point. But so it's definitely something to be aware of and something to have control of in your life. And it's an interesting thing. I've got some stuff I want to say, but I'm going to turn it over to Kyle and let him talk because otherwise I'll just keep going. So Kyle,
You're more than welcome to keep going.
it's
This is just such an interesting topic. I could listen to. I'm sure I could listen to you talk about it for a while. And mental attacks are difficult, really difficult. I mean, it's crazy because you don't know what's you and what's not you, and is this something that is controlling you, or do you control it, or what's going on? And it's just really, the struggle is ridiculous. And then to have the fear of, okay, do I have schizophrenia or what's going on with that, and that just adds a whole nother level, because now what reality can you believe in, right? Because reality, if you did have schizophrenia, that was a possibility, and then how do you trust anything at all? I mean, most schizophrenics can't. So that's really tough, and I agree. I mean, I'm so happy that you came to the conclusion that you can't self-diagnose yourself. That was really a redundant sentence. Because that's never good. Any person who is trained in psychology will tell you that. No, never self-diagnose. It's never accurate. It's always bad. It just leads you down the wrong road. So,
dang, is that my problem?
Yeah, so I can really understand this. This would be an enormous struggle, because trying to operate when you yourself are in such internal conflict is just difficult. And so I'm so happy that you're able to pull through it and get out of it, because um, they're scary. It's really scary. And, sometimes these things are caused internally, just something, not internally, like there's something we want to think about, but just chemically, just our brains doing weird misfire things. Sometimes they could be um, external influence, sort of doing things. Some kind of curse or um, some kind of oppression of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And and there's just, to deal with that, I think, the only thing, prayer, and find some solid foundation that you can hold on to, something that you know is good and holy, and sit with that as much as possible, something that you can return to, for some kind of ground. Because the reality is that all of these things, right, are fake in a way, right? They're not real. They're pretending to be real. They're pretending to be real in order to scare us into some kind of action or influence our activity. And if they're not who we want to be, they're not who we are, then we need to find something to hold on to so that that doesn't pull us in that direction. So,
Mm-hmm.
you say that you sort of developed this strong will to sort of resist, and that's I would love to know how, to be honest with you, because it would, you would have, sounds like, a lot more to say about this than I would, having gone through it in such a deep way. I've had, weird thoughts here and there, just out of nowhere, that are scary, but not constant, not this constant sort of um, torment. And so I don't know. It sounds like you got counseling, so that, I'm sure that that probably had a lot to do with helping. And if somebody is, definitely go find some counseling, because you're gonna need somebody who can identify what's you and what's not you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you give in to what's not you, it can be really hard to find who you are again. And these are people who just do stuff to hurt people. A lot of times you may call them psychopaths. Um, could result from something like this sort of mental abuse that is sort of internal, right? It's not coming from another person, but it's this internal sort of destruction, and having something to stick to when you notice that starts happening, or like in this example, somebody's yelling and screaming at you or whatever, like finding that thing that is a rock for you, and hold on to whatever it is. Go talk to, maybe it's your parents or a really good friend, or you could pray. There's all kinds of things, but just finding something that and you can convince yourself of, that is your foundation, and then go back to them. I think that's my suggestion. Will definitely get help, and don't fight. Like, I think if there's anything that I would recommend is different from what happened in this scenario, is to seek help sooner,
Mm-hmm.
because this is not something that a normal person can handle on their own and overcome. This is an extraordinary sort of person that can take this level of oppression and deal with it without being influenced to a great negative degree first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do have something like this going on, yeah, no, you're not alone. It happens to people, but go get help, and get help as soon as possible, because the longer you have this going on, the more you're likely to get stuck. And that those thoughts and those ideas that aren't yours, that are being pushed into the front of your mind, right? Those become more and more a part of you the more they happen. Unless you can identify that's not you, find that foundation and find a person who can help you recognize that and know where you belong, and get you in the right headspace. So I think I'd like to turn it over to Joe. He's done a lot more work in this sort of area of expertise than I have, and research and reading. And, yeah.
Well, I've definitely experienced it, so I can say exactly. I can agree completely with what you said, Kyle, and that is get help. Get help soon, right? If this is something that you're dealing with now, I know Anonymous, that you went through this and you got your way through it, right? I would say, if this is something that's going on currently for anybody that's listening, get help, and get help soon. Find a counselor of some kind. And I would definitely seek a psychologist or a licensed public counselor, or a psychiatrist, maybe even. I generally would say to start with a counselor, and then maybe step up to psychologist, and then up to psychiatrist. Because a lot of times, if you start with a psychiatrist, they will look at chemically what could be happening, and might just put you on some kind of medication before they really get to the bottom of the situation, because medication may or may not help, right? Now, there are antipsychotic medicines out there. There are antidepressants. There are anti-anxiety. There are all kinds of different medications, and they're going to tweak you chemically, right? So really, the idea is to pinpoint, is there even a chemical imbalance, first of all, and then we can get to the point of, how do we fix this, right? Kyle touched on this a little bit. He mentioned oppression. If you're a spiritual person, you can understand there's spiritual warfare going on around us all the time. And sometimes we become susceptible to that, especially, Kat, you said in the chat, you said, I hate intrusive thoughts, especially when I'm at a mental low. And I can tell you what, I pretty much, the main time I have intrusive thoughts is when I'm at a mental low, right? We're composite beings. We're physical, we're mental, and we're spiritual. And these three, they coexist in us. And if one thing is having some trouble, it's going to affect the other two. I remember talking to a really good friend of mine, when I was going through some serious stuff, and he asked me, how's your prayer life? And I said, man, it's kind of in the toilet. And he's like, well, that makes sense. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me. For you to say that makes sense. He's like, no, because you're mentally ill. And he came right out and said it. You are mentally ill. And it wasn't a way to, to make fun of me. It wasn't a way to pick on me or anything. He was just pointing out the fact, like, look, you have a lot of stressors. It's affecting you mentally. That is also affecting you physically, and it's also affecting you spiritually. And so all these things can play into it. Now, spiritual oppression, spiritual warfare, I mean, I don't know how far I want to go into this, but you can talk about exorcists, right? People that are dealing with evil spirits that are oppressing them. what an exorcist will do is they will bring a psychologist with them when they talk to somebody, because they want to get a good picture of, okay, is this person having a mental issue, or is it actually a spiritual issue? Like, is there something at work here in the supernatural world that we can't see that's affecting them, or is this a mental thing that can be helped through psychology, right? And so there are all kinds of things that could be happening, but one of the best things you can do is find a counselor and start there. And through that, you will gain insight into what kinds of things you can do, what kinds of things you can that can help you through. My therapist, my counselor that I talk to now, my biggest struggle is depression. And so she has told me, okay, in your situation, it's an anger issue. So for me, she's like, you are so good. This is what my counselor told me. And she told me this at our last session, actually. She was like, you are so good at controlling your anger that you don't even realize that you're just burying it. And you need to deal with it, not bury it, right? But she was like, you have gotten to a level of self-control with anger that is beyond so many people. But the danger is that now you control it to the point of just shoving it all down. And what happens is then it freezes and becomes depression. And so that's the major danger. Major danger. That's like the biggest danger that you are facing. And so she gave me some things to do. A lot of it included drumming, drumming to angry music. She's like, allow yourself to be angry, make yourself angry and be angry, and then express that anger through music, through drumming. And I was like, well, I'm learning the bass too. She's like, yeah, but bass players always seem really chill and relaxed, and like, they're just the cool people, man. Like, hey, I play the bass, it's cool. And she's like, that might not be a good way of getting out aggression, but drumming, you can take out some aggression. And so I break drumsticks, and it's fun. But anyway, as far as intrusive thoughts go, this, there are some possibilities at play. There could be spiritual warfare going on, or it could be mental, it could be both, and they could be affecting it. But the best thing you can do is talk to a counselor and get to the bottom of it. But one of the things I want to stress to anyone who might be dealing with this is that it's temporary. Our feelings are temporary. Our emotions are temporary. Our situations are temporary. These things are all temporary, and life cycles. Life goes through good times, bad times, goes through really difficult times, and sometimes really easy times. And so whatever it is that you're going through, it's not permanent. It's temporary. But then the question is, how long will it last may depend on whether or not you get help and how soon you get help. Because it's really easy to stay stuck for a while in a bad mental state if you don't have some insight as to what's causing it and what you can do about it. And really, there are people trained to know what to do there. We've got some good stuff in the chat. Saule says, I was just thinking about the chemical imbalance statements earlier. There may be chemical imbalances that are caused by the emotional states rather than the other way around. So there may be chemical imbalances, but the solution may not be adding other chemicals. Sometimes it's doing something to change your emotional state. And that absolutely, Jeho, in terms of music theater, don't freeze your brain. Instead, everyone tells Jason to see a psychiatrist so that you can get to voices in my head. I recognize the middle one is a stretch. But yeah, like, if you can recognize those voices, sometimes it's just negative self-talk that we've allowed to run amok for a while. And that can be really hard. That can be really hard to deal with, especially if we're spiraling. Because then, like a negative emotion will feed on the next one and it'll just get bigger. And then the next one comes along and feeds on that environment and they just get bigger and more out of control. And before you know it, you're just in this pit of despair. And it's really hard to deal with, and it's really hard to climb out of it. And sometimes it takes, like one of the things Kat had said in the chat there, when my friend is spiraling, they will often ask to talk about something unrelated to distract themselves and calm down. And that can be so helpful. And sometimes it might take a while. It might take a while of talking about something different. It might take a while of, getting into a conversation and getting into those details. It's there's so much that can be said. And part of the problem is, if you're dealing with this, everything that we're sharing here is kind of surface level stuff. It's surface level, and it's recommendations, and it's, different things about what could possibly be happening with you. But in a case like this, you got to go deeper. And the only way to go deeper is with somebody who knows what they're talking about and someone who has the time to get to know your situation specifically and is digging down below the surface. So that's why, a licensed public counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, somebody who knows how to dig into that situation, someone who's been trained to dig. And only then can you figure out specifically what you need for your situation. We can give you recommendations and say what might be going on and, talk about some examples of what maybe we went through, but it's probably not going to be exactly the same as what you are specifically dealing with. And that's why it takes that time. It probably take more than just one appointment with a counselor as well. It might take quite a series. And some of those appointments are going to be really difficult. Sometimes they're going to ask you questions that hurt. Sometimes they're going to make statements that hurt. And the reason they're asking those questions and making those statements is to read your responses so they can see what's actually going on. Or maybe they're trying to help you understand something that kind of sits off to the side, but there's no other way to bring your attention to it without asking some kind of probing, difficult question. So if you're dealing with this, if you're dealing with the intrusive thoughts, if you're dealing with, this constant battle, get help. And also, we want to help in any way we can on Don't Worry Wednesday, of course. And we will be happy to be your friend and to offer perspective and to love you and give you as much encouragement as possible, because that's also critical when you're going through a situation where you need therapy, where you need a therapist, a counselor. It's also important to have a support group. That was one of the things that my therapist on my first appointment stressed more than anything, was like, okay, what's your support group look like? Who are the people in your support group? And why are they in your support group? Like, who are these people? And because she was like, we're only going to meet like 1 hour a week. And if there's an emergency, you can definitely call, and you can call the hotlines or whatever. But, we need to figure out, who's your support group. You need to have a strong support group. And if you don't have a strong support group, we need to start looking for people to be in that support group. That needs to be a priority. And so that's really all we can do on Don't Worry Wednesday is kind of be a small little portion of that support group and just encourage you and love you while you go through the journey. But digging into this deeper situation, man, getting help is going to be the best way. So, anyway, I think that's about all that I have at this point. Kyle, did you have anything else to say about this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot that could be said, but you're right. We're very surface level. There's no really good way for us to get down into specifics. It's all over the map, but just, yeah, get help. Get help.
Yes, Princess has some good things in the chat here too. I just gotta find it.
I mean, basically, what I had said was just, for grounding yourself, which is important. It's good to have techniques for that. You didn't have to put me on video, but it's fine.
But you're beautiful, so of course you're going to be on video.
Okay, Joe, I believe you.
We could just have you on video and we could talk in the background, and that would be the, you know what, it would be the way better show.
No, it wouldn't be.
And I wouldn't have to have
you.
this fake background.
That's a
Your
fake
background's
background?
beautiful, Kyle. It's all good.
I thought that was your house.
Grounding techniques I find are very helpful, especially when things are overwhelming. For Ominous Anonymous, you kind of retreated into yourself for that peace and quiet. For me, when I'm fighting my mental battles, the worst place I can be is inside myself, because it's so noisy and it tries to do way too many things that I need to be outside of myself. Because if I'm not outside of myself, I am just surrounded. So for me, the grounding technique would often be, seeing 5 things and then touching 5 things. I'm a very touch-based person. Like, feeling things is very calming to me. I also have some other things, but again, going through your senses and bringing you back to the present moment rather than whatever's going on in your head is a great way to go. There's other things you might have, like, in counselors' offices, because I've been to many of those for my anxiety, they would have the little flip things that have little drops. It's a colored liquid that has little drops. It's either oil or water, but it's basically heavier than the other liquid. So it just goes drip, 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 drip at a very constant rate to try and, again, center yourself into that. And it's about focusing in on that and not letting the intrusive thoughts be what you focus on. It's going to be hard because, again, they're called intrusive thoughts for a reason. They're trying to intrude. They're trying to barge into your room and be that loud, annoying person that's stomping on your floors or banging on your door when you're trying to sleep. But you've got to still try and stay as focused as you can just on little things that are here and there and dismissing those intrusive thoughts. I think Joe has had it before where it's like, thank you, and you are dismissed. Not easy to do that.
No.
I'm not going to say it is at all.
Not when they're really intrusive, especially.
Yeah. So for that, it might be better to just try to focus on something else that is completely unrelated. Sometimes that's your breathing. There's lots of breathing techniques. There's even pictures that'll guide you through, like, breathe in and then breathe out, at a particular rate. So there's that. And then also just a matter of, it's a cycle, right? Things affect other things, It's a domino. But because it's also information, it's a feedback loop. You don't feel mentally well, so then you start not feeling physically well. And then because you're feeling not physically well, then it goes back into the mental image of, like, shifting that and, like, oh, I don't feel well. And then it gets mental, and then it gets physical, and then it gets mental, and then it gets physical. Because it's in that loop. And so you have to figure out a way to stop that loop. Usually it's not going to be at the physical level, though sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can do some exercise and you can kind of, like, get your body to be like, oh, well, I'm actually doing okay. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes where you have to do it is you have to put a stop at the mental area so that it stops making a feedback loop. And then it'll eventually unwind itself back up like a coiled yo-yo.
Mm-hmm.
Except that it's hopefully not going to rebound the other way, though sometimes that happens. It's
Yeah.
that's analogies are analogies.
Yes.
But that was basically what I mentioned.
Okay. Well, thank you, Princess. And I tell you, Princess has helped me also with some of these grounding techniques. It was really quite amazing, and I've taken some of that what she taught me and used that on my own as a way to help ground. And what happens when you're panicking like that is you no longer have your conscious mind engaged. You're gone to your limbic system, which is the freeze, fight, or flight mode, right? And that has taken over, and you're basically going on instinct. And that's what happens. Freaking out, man. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And I think that was my comment to Princess. She's like, hey, she just inadvertently said, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "I'm freaking out, man." And I was like, "Oh, but it was one of those moments, and those grounding techniques work so well to move you back into conscious thinking and getting you out of that limbic system, the freeze, fight, and flight mode, of which I'm generally freeze. I will just freeze and go catatonic. I remember freaking everybody out when I had my first mental breakdown in when my first year in college, and that happened, and I was just I was unreachable. I was totally catatonic, but I could see what was going on, but I could not do anything. It was scary. But when you're dealing with stuff like that, you know, it a lot of times takes a professional to give you that insight. There are tests that can be done. There are different things, they can ask questions and to get certain results. But sometimes those results are so easy to misinterpret by someone who isn't trained. It requires somebody who is trained to administer a test like that. Remember asking that question, like, how come I can't just self-test these things, right? But like Kyle said, self-diagnosis, not generally a good thing, right? You're not gonna diagnose yourself all that well. And there's a lot of truth in that. So Kyle, did you have anything more?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Then I would like to do one last thing because I saw this
Absolutely.
in the chat and I
Yeah.
just very much resonate with it.
You're going back on
I've learned
camera.
that I tend to. I'm doing this for you, chat. You're welcome.
Thank you,
I've learned that I
Princess.
tend to feel physically unwell when I have severe anxiety. I've learned to rationalize that it's all mental and I just need a change of scenery.
Mm.
The challenge is when I don't realize that I'm anxious. I experienced this today. This went great. I mean, I kind of knew I was anxious, but the thing is I don't realize how anxious I am. I think other people notice it before I do because
Mm.
my brain is so good at basically it has experienced enough anxiety and severe anxiety where it'll for me just the instant the question comes up, am I anxious right now? It just shuts it down. It's like, nope, we're going to come up with an answer. We're going to come up with a solution. I'm going to be anxious the whole time, and you are buckling up and you're stuck with it.
Mm.
It really stinks because I can't change what I can't recognize, you know? And it's hard because I want to recognize that I'm anxious. And once you recognize you're anxious, oh, you can do something about it. You can get fresh scenery. I got really anxious because I was learning something new and I wanted to do well, and I saw somebody else was doing well and I was really struggling. And
Mm.
so sometimes that just really gets to me because I want to do well,
Mm-hmm.
so much so that I get worried about it. And I'm trying to do it in my own way, but at the same time, I'm not understanding every bit of information. And so I have this drive to present the data right because I
Mm-hmm.
want to, you know, and because I couldn't do that in the way that I wanted to because I didn't have all the information, I didn't know what I was doing, which is normal for someone learning something new. It got me hyped up,
Mm.
but I didn't notice it. Now, what eventually kind of clued me in is I was walking too fast. I was walking very fast when I didn't need to be because I was in anxious mode of like, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I get that way,
Mm.
and so it was like, slow down. I was like, I bet you I'm anxious. But then my brain still shut that down. but but that was still a moment where I tried to slow down a little bit. And because of that, I still was able to do something. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't as much as I'd like. But part of that is, again, every day is a great day to train on being able to try and recognize things, recognize how fast you're going, how you're taking life, and not getting too hyper focused on something that is, super present, because it can be, and you can get really sucked into it. And when you get sucked into something, then you tend to not notice other things around you.
Yes.
But like today, like I didn't realize I was anxious, like to the point where I think I might have been at one point like slightly on tears because I was just like wanting so badly to get this right, but I couldn't, and I was just scared when I didn't need to be because I didn't have the time I needed to feel like I knew what I was doing. But even then, I didn't know what I was doing, and so I just got worried and nervous, And it was actually the person who was teaching me this that kind of noticed. It was like, hey, we can slow down, slow down. So at some point, I'm gonna write her an email just so that she knows. I'm not being overstressed by my job. I have a very good job, and I'm very blessed that they're able to work with someone like me in an environment where a lot of the time I don't feel super overly anxious. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because I am diagnosed with generalized anxiety. It's going to be my life, but that doesn't mean I can't try to do something about it. And again, grounding is very good. For me, I have other things for assessing myself. Yes, don't self-diagnose, but at my table I have a ball that expands and contracts. And so when I'm at my normal rhythm, it's like woo, 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 woo. And when I'm anxious, it's woo, 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 woo. So I can tell how anxious I am by how much faster I'm moving the thing when I'm at a very normal pace of like, I'm just going at it normally. And if I'm doing this, I know there's a problem. And then I actually use that device to help me, because again, it's a lot like the images, but it's a physical object, because I find physical objects help me. It should be also good for you to assess what helps you, whether that's listening to things and having somebody walk you through it audioly, if it's having a workbook thing of like using something like that, or a visual, like obviously the picture or the moving image. For me, having a physical object that I watch expand and contract, and I do it at like dun dun dun, another one, but anyway, at some sort of rhythm pace that's at a consistent rate, then I can help myself get calm, and then I can let myself do it normally, and I'll find that I'll move a lot slower once I've actually taken that time to try and calm myself. And once I've calmed myself, then I can really address the anxiety, because that's the other thing about anxiety, is that it gets you really hyped up. For me, I'm a flight person. If I can book it out of there, I will book it out of there as fast as possible. I will hide under tables. I will seek out small, tiny hiding spots if I can, because I like those when I want to run away, which is not very often. And it's not necessary, but it's a habit that I should break at some point. But for now, it's fine. So I say.
Well, of course it's fine.
Anyway,
that's
it's
just
a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It's one of my tools. I wouldn't say it's the greatest tool, because usually people get concerned when you disappear, or if they find you in said hiding spot, there's tends to be concern of what the heck is a human being doing underneath the little area where I'm like making my lunch or breakfast. Like most people don't notice that, actually, but either way, again, it's about having different tools in your arsenal, and that's what is great about getting professional help, is they usually have great tools. These are some of the tools that I have been taught. One of them has been like finding a happy place. That doesn't work for me because I can't visualize things in my mind's eye. I have aphantasia, which isn't a disease. It's just a condition where my brain is not wired that way. I don't see mental images. I can't imagine someone's face. I can't, look at a piece of paper and know what was on there. I can describe it maybe, but I can't physically see an image. So for me, trying to visualize a beach, or some calm place that I like, some place I feel is safe, which is good for anxiety, is to have that. If you can imagine that, the way that it looks, how it sounds, how it would feel if you were there, what it would smell like. Again, engaging your senses to bring you back to a moment in time that is not your anxiety
Mm-hmm.
is good. That just didn't work for me, and I was confused. It's like, why are you trying to have me imagine something? I mean, I can kind of somewhat remember a moment from a video game. I could kind of substitute, but I don't really get what you mean by imagine this in my head. But that's enough of a tangent. Sorry. I'm going to turn it back and we can end the show. I just wanted to address that because I saw it and I relate to that.
Mm.
And I hope it helps.
Yes, it is helpful. It helps me to know these things as well. And yeah, you talked about self-diagnosis, Princess, that yes, you can assess yourself, but a lot of these self-assessments, didn't they come from a counselor or something like that?
Not
Like,
the one that I made up with the ball thing. I figured that out on
oh,
my
you did?
own.
Okay. All right.
But I'm also someone, keep in mind also, just disclaimer, I'm someone who's pretty in tune with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see these things. Doesn't mean that you can. And I'm not, no fault if you can't, nothing like, I'm just someone who's been more, I guess, I just tend to understand how I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
to a degree that I don't think a lot of people tend to. Now, not that you can't. I mean, I don't know.
I can't.
But I just know that I can. And so I was able to find that I can bring myself to a state of calm, put air quotes around it, but that I can put myself in a somewhat enough of a state that I'm not consciously doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what my unconscious is doing, I can tell what's going on. Probably.
Gotcha.
I can make assumptions, which can backfire.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, you're in tune with yourself in that way. I can imagine and visualize things. So I guess we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. That's okay. We're made up of great stuff, us people. And it's amazing. Our imperfections really make us who we are. Isn't that interesting? You look like you have more to say. Did you have more to say? No? Okay.
No. I find aphantasia fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, me too, because I don't experience that.
Yeah. It's amazing how we all experience things differently. I've had a lot of discussions with my kids recently because I'm fairly colorblind, red and green colorblind. So they're always asking me now what different colors are, and it's fun because half the time, I wouldn't say half the time, but there's a lot of times I can't. Hey, that's brown. I don't care what you say, it's brown, and no, it's so.
No, it's not. It's red and green.
But I understand, why that's happening. So it's funny. It's kind of a little joke we have. But yeah, we all perceive life a little differently, and it's interesting when our ability to even do things within our own mind is different from every. It's like I tried writing a song once, wasn't very good at all. It's terrible. First thing I've ever heard. So, but my brother, he writes his first song and it's actually pretty decent. So, he kept writing songs and now he's phenomenal. And just, we all have interesting internal differences. It's neat.
Yes. And that's why going back to Meow's topic, that's another reason why social interactions are good. Because we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and we can hold each other up with our strengths and support each other in their weaknesses, however you want to put it. But we can support each other, we can help each other, and together we can do a lot more with our skills and abilities and our talents. And to get back to Anonymous's topic, I'll tell you, we can all support each other. Yes, that's very, very true. But you know what? In the case where you're dealing with that kind of stuff, like in your topic, I will stress once more that a professional is in order. It would be a good idea to find a professional and do it sooner than I did. I waited until I couldn't do things anymore, until it was affecting my ability to function. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to see a counselor, right? I mean, Kyle probably remembers that conversation where it was like, yeah, this is getting really rough, man. Like, I can't do stuff. I think I need a therapist. Like, I should have found a therapist a lot sooner. But I tell you,
And you would imagine that you should know better after, doing the show for a while, but we all need to be told once in a while.
I know, man. It's crazy. We all got blind spots. That's the thing. That's why self-diagnosis can be a nightmare sometimes, because I'm fine. And then it's like all of a sudden, oh, maybe I'm not fine. Okay, we need to get to the bottom of this. It'll be good. But anyway, Anonymous, thank you so much for the topic. And thank you guys for listening to us and all your contributions in the chat. You guys are amazing. And it's so awesome to see, all of you guys offering your helpful hints and bits of advice and bits of experiences that you've had. I love it because this is really a group of people that cares. And I love you guys so much for that. I mean, I'd love you anyway, but that's especially cool, that you guys are all willing to help and, try to make those lives around you better. I think that's just so cool. So thank you guys very much for being here on our show. Thank you for the topic, Anonymous. And thank you, Kyle, for being here on the show with us when your brother's on vacation.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And thank you, Princess. Princess, you contributed so much to this show. You always contribute a lot to every show, but I think you had something to say about every topic. And it was awesome.
I help out when I can. When it's right. So it just happens when it does.
And we got to put you back on camera.
You had to put me on camera.
Of course I do.
I'm shutting up for the rest of the show.
All right, fine. But anyway, thank you guys so much for being here and for joining us. We could not do this show without you guys and without your support. We love you. Be sure to go to our website, don'tworrywednesday.com. There will be new episodes coming out on our YouTube channel. So if you like and subscribe and hit the bell or whatever, you'll get notified for all those. Thanks for borrowing the static. Hey, Tef, I wish I was down there with all you guys. That sounds like way fun. So yeah, you guys are awesome. But anyway, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for joining us. We love you guys, and we will see you next time on Don't Worry Wednesday. Until then, have a great week and take care. See you later.